Hey, how you doing? So welcome to One Image My Edit, and what I'm going to be showing you today is how you can warm up portraits so that you can get a little bit more of a natural skin tone going on. So you can see here on the before and after that this has quite a lot of blue in it, and it's got some really cool tones going on in the skin. So I just want to show you how you can correct that using Lightroom. It's quite a simple process and something that can really help make your images pop. So I'm going to restart this, or reset rather, and show you the process that I use. So we're going to ignore most of these to start with. I'm going to jump straight into the whites, and I'm going to push these up a little bit because I want to make the whole image a little bit more brighter. Okay, so just so we can pick out some more detail. And then the blacks, I'm going to push them up as well. Again, up to around 25. Again, this is just to make the image a little bit brighter. You can see there, just doing that is enough just to pick out some of the shadows around here and some of the darker areas. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add some clarity to this. Now, usually I wouldn't add clarity to a portrait and I wouldn't advise it. Simply because it can make skin tones look a little bit old, but because this model has got really good skin, and also because of the freckles, I'm just boosting that clarity up just a little bit. And then to counterbalance that, I'm going to get the dehaze tool and I'm just going to minus that to around -4. So this just helps with a little bit of separation on the skin, and you'll be able to see all around the eyes and cheekbones and stuff what that does. It's a very subtle edit to do. Then what I'm going to do is come down to the vibrance, just push that up a little bit, only probably +5 around that mark, just to boost up all of the colours in general. And it's just a little nod there, just to boost it up a little bit. And then the next step is the tone curve, and within the tone curve there's a lot we can do with the individual colors. We can target them, but I'm going to start with the tones, so the grays, the whites and the blacks, and I'm going to put a point here, I'm going to put a point in the middle, and then another point down here. So we've got the whites here, the grays here and the blacks here, and all I'm going to do is just push them blacks up ever so slightly like that. And I might just pull this down just a little bit there. So we've got quite a bit of a steep edit there. Now what this does, when we select these points here, it just isolates the whites, the greys and the blacks. So when we change the blacks, we're not then completely changing the greys and the whites rather. Okay, so let's get on with some color grading then within the tone curve tool. So within red, I'm going to again make these points, so one here, one in the middle, so around there, and then one down here where the black is. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this point down, and I'm going to move it down to around there. So we're just pulling them blacks in. And we're not blacks. It's the we're just pushing them reds in towards the green sections there within the black area. Okay, so push the greys up, so the midtones going up to more towards the red slightly, and then the whites again. I'm going to push them up ever so slightly. So we're starting to warm that skin tone up a little bit. So we're coming out of the greens in the highlights and going more in within the blacks of the reds and greens. Okay. So once we've done that, we can then move over to the greens and magentas here. So again, let's make these singular points here. Okay, and let's just bring up the top whites from magenta into the greens. I'm going to leave the midtones as they are, and then just bring down these blacks. I'm just going to bring them down to around there, I'd say. That looks quite nice. So we've just got this nice sort of S-curve going on. I'm going to push that up ever so slightly to around there. And you can move these up and down as well. That's going to give you different effects and different looks. So you can just tweak and play with it until you're really happy. So let's go into the blue and yellow sections then. And again, following the same suit really, it's this S curve, but it's quite a steep S curve that we're creating. So let's push these blues into the yellows, so down here, so it's about there. And again, you just need to judge by your own individual pictures. I'm going to leave the midtones where they are for a second. I'm just going to push the whites. I'm going to push these yellows up into the blue section up here. And I'm actually want to make that quite steep, about there, I'd say. That's quite interesting. And let's just move this that way a little bit. So I reckon around there. So it's a nice steep S curve again. Okay, so you can see there it's starting to warm up definitely. So now we can just actually come and play around with the colors individually now. So we're almost fine tuning this process, this curve adjustment process. So let's start with the hues. The oranges, I think we're just going to drop them down a little bit, probably -3, -4, around there. And then the yellows, this does affect skin tone, and the whole idea is to warm it up. So I'm going to push that up to around +12, around there. The greens, are going to push them up as well, about +10. Same with the aqua, I think about +10. The blue, probably not as much, +5, +6. Purples, I don't think there's a lot of purple in this shot, but there is a little bit within the skin tones. So I reckon around +15, 16, around there. And then magentas, obviously there's going to be magenta within the skin tone. So let's push that up a little bit just so we can bring that warmth out. So let's go +25. I think that's quite good. So the saturation, now we can manipulate the brightness of that. So we can, even though we've changed the colors to kind of get into what we want, we now want to suppress them a little bit, because if the colors are too deep, it can look a little bit too vibrant and too much saturation within the shot. So using this just as a little balance does help. So let's bring the reds down to -5, -6. The orange, are going to push that up because there's a little bit of orange in that skin tone. The yellows, let's just bring these down to around -20. That's quite nice. Green, let's bring that down. I don't like green, so let's bring it down to -50. I don't think there's much within this anyway, but I just want to make sure, because if it's too green, then the yellows won't look as nice. Aqua, -25. Let's go halfway. 26. That's good. The blues, again, we -20 because we want to take that cool tone out, don't we? Purple, let's go -30. Magenta, I'm going to leave that. So the luminance, the brightness. So now we can brighten tones that we want to keep, okay, and ones that we don't want. So orange, very, very prominent within this. So let's go +9, okay. Greens, let's go -30, okay. Aqua, let's push that up a little bit, probably +10, +11. The blues, again, let's just suppress them a little bit, -20. I think that's quite good. And maybe then magenta +15, just to get that extra warmth up within the skin, around there. Depends, again, your image may slightly vary, it will vary a lot. So that's looking quite good. Now let's do some color grading, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just edit the midtones, okay, because the shadows, pretty much we've got, there's within the shadows on here, there is a blue tint to it, ever so slightly. And the highlights, I don't want to affect them because we'll start changing color of hair and things like that. So I think just the midtones will give us enough, warming up effect on the skin. Okay, so let's have a look. So let's select a hue. So let me just think what I'm going to do, because obviously you can change this for every image type. I think around 46, 48, around there. So I'm just looking at these yellows here. Obviously we want a yellow because we want to warm it up, don't we? Let's boost the saturation up then. So let's get this yellow going. And I think saturation about 10, 12 is usually quite good. So it's just a hint. yeah, around 48. That's quite nice because we're not so far into the yellow, we're not so far into the sort of reds and then going into magenta. So it's just a little bit of a hint, which is quite nice. So let's bring the luminance down. So that's the brightness of it all. So minus 20, 22 on that. And then the balance, let's just bring that down as well. So we're just balancing more towards normal tones. That's quite nice actually, because it's very, very subtle, and that has just completely warmed up the whole image. If I go to the history, you'll see that, let's have a look. Yeah, so it was just from that step to there, you can see what that's done. It's just a really, really small hint of colour, and it's enough just to warm up the whole of the skin tone. Yeah, so hopefully you can see that. That's quite an important step. That. Now you could add some grain to this as well if you wanted to. Let's sharpen it a little bit. Hold the Alt or Option key down. Let's just boost that up. So we're just highlighting that anywhere that's white is going to be sharp and not the whole image, which does help. We could add a little bit of grain to it or noise reduction, again depending on what you want to do. But that is getting there now. I think for colours that's pretty good. Now we can come back up to here and let's just have a look at these shadows. Let's just maybe bring them down a little bit. Highlights, maybe just +1, +3. Bring them shadows back down to -4. And then maybe just +5 for contrast. And then I think to finish it off, I think it's always a good idea just to pick out a little bit of detail in the eye. So let's click on the brush tool. I'm going to go to Dodge for now, which is the lighten. Click on the Show Selected Mask Overlay, and I'm going to make sure the feather's up 100. I'm going to bring the flow down. I'm going to bring the density down. I'm going to bring that down to sort of around about 50. It's not minus, but around 50. I think that's quite good. And then we can just paint in around the eye. Also, I've got auto mask selected, so that means that it will try and sort of stay in the lines of a subject or object, whatever it is you're painting. It will kind of work out that this is the pupil and it won't slip into the eye there. So we've got quite a good selection there. I mean, she looks a bit mean there, so let's take the mask overlay off, and now we can create the adjustment. So you can see there by default the lighten, the exposure rather, it just popped up there. So let's do that. It's not even +1. It's at 1.37, 0.37. Pardon. Let's boost the saturation up just to bring out them eyes a little bit. I think, again, depending on your image, and let's just sharpen them a little bit as well. So we're just bringing detail out into them eyes. So press OK. We can have a look. So that was the before and that was the after. So it's very, very subtle, but that's enough just to bring out detail and to draw your eye in. So that is the finished process. Like I said, it's very subtle. And it's quite a simple and easy process. Most of the work is done through the curve tool, obviously the HSL, so your hue, saturation, luminance, but the main thing is the color grading just on the midtones there. So if we press the Y key, you'll see there's the before and after, and you can see there what we've done. And of course you can then come back and correct it. So looking at this now, I would probably look at some of the skin tones here. We can maybe just lighten them a little bit, or if you decide you want it a little bit darker, you can. Again, this is where you can experiment now. But I would push that orange up a little bit, I think, and potentially that magenta as well, to push that up. So I'm just fine-tuning now, and it's always a good idea just to have your before and after, because it gives you a better idea of what you want to do color wise. So again, we can look at this magenta here and the purple, see what that's doing. So yeah, about there. I think that would be it. That's what I would go for. So if you look at that, you can see it's got a little bit more life to it. The one on the left has very much blue and green tones in it, so it's very cold. It does work as it is. Okay, that's the whole idea with this, is to have it as a cool image. But again, you can see having the correction there, it's just a little bit more life, and it gives you a completely different look. So use this with this kind of process. You can use it in your own images. Let me know how you get on. Post your images up in the Facebook group, and I'll give you some advice and comment on them. But that is my steps to just warming up skin tones and color correcting your images in Lightroom. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye bye.